Ghost of Tsushima Review PS4, the surprise of the generation. We are only a few months away from the launch of the PlayStation 5, and yet here we are, with Sony releasing all-time great exclusives in the final months of the PS4's life cycle. The Last of Us Part 2, despite many agreeing that it's a phenomenal game, has been a hotbed of debate since its release. Ghost of Tsushima. It has been a far less. Ghost of Tsushima Review PS4, the surprise of the generation. We are only a few months away from the launch of the PlayStation 5, and yet here we are, with Sony releasing all-time great exclusives in the final months of the PS4's life cycle. The Last of Us Part 2, despite many agreeing that it's a phenomenal game, has been a hotbed of debate since its release. Ghost of Tsushima. It has been a far less controversial title, liked by critics but. And it's easy to see why, as it's a game that is genuinely impossible not to like with how much it gets right. Sucker Punch is best known for its infamous games, a solid series of superhero outings for PlayStation, albeit no one was usually listing them among Sony's best in a given generation. But once again, Sony has allowed a developer to spread its wings and do something wildly outside their usual box, and we have gone from a superhero cityscape to a samurai open world, and Sucker Punch has absolutely nailed every aspect of the landing here. The game follows Jin, the nephew of the samurai Lord of Tsushima, who finds his home island invaded and decimated by a Mongol horde. His uncle captured, his armor broken and his spirit crushed, Jin must crawl his way back to assembling a fighting force to retake the island, relying on the few warriors that survived the massacre, along with turning himself into a mythical legend that inspires the people of Tsushima and strikes fear into the hearts of the Mongols, the Ghost. It is impossible to talk about Ghost of Tsushima without first mentioning its beauty. I have made the case that Ghost of Tsushima may be the most beautiful game ever made. And given the past generation of releases, that is not something I say lightly. It's not just about photorealism. In fact, environments and characters in games like God of War or The Last of Us are certainly more graphically intensive. But it's the art design here, the gorgeous sweeping landscapes of rich, vibrant colors, and the use of sunlight, wind and weather effects to make practically every frame of the game something you want to snap a photo of. And the game lets you do just that with one of the best in business photo modes, which is how you're seeing the gorgeous snaps threaded all throughout this piece. Rarely have I found a game where I just constantly stand there in awe of a given landscape, and Tsushima elicits this feeling roughly once every 10 minutes depending on where your mission takes you. The beauty extends past the world, however, and into the combat. I am in awe of how enjoyable Sucker Punch has made combat in Ghost of Tsushima, a fine balance between the ultra-hard parrying and dodging of a NIOH or Dark Souls, but challenging enough to be more than a simple hack and slash. A wide variety of armor sets and charms paired with traditional parrying and dodging, paired with special ghost weapons, paired with shifting combat stances and special moves, all equals one of the most robust, engaging combat systems I've ever seen. Everything about combat feels excellent. From the first time you win a standoff with a one-hit kill to when you perfected your stagger build that allows you to win 1v6 in open combat with ease. If there is one criticism you can make of Ghost of Tsushima, it's that it is rather long and can get repetitive. And yet the thing is, combat is so good that you don't really care if the 85th side mission you're doing is to go to a farm and kill 12 Ronin, because combat is just that damn fun. I am constantly reminded of how Insomniac mastered Spider-Man combat in that game, making you feel more like that hero than ever before. Sucker Punch has done the same here, but with a samurai. This is exactly how I wanted my overpowered, hyper-skilled samurai to feel, a whirlwind of death and destruction, rather than someone constantly trying to avoid getting one shot in more difficult games. As such, Ghost of Tsushima can feel a bit easy compared to rivals, but the power fantasy is worth the trade, if you ask me. Finally, a third pillar of the game is one I was not expecting, an incredibly well-written, emotionally impactful story. Jin's journey is fascinating, as we are not going down the well-worn road of should heroes kill here, but rather the story is one about honor and a constant conflict between Jin and his uncle over the tactics they should be using to fight the Mongols. His uncle seems to believe that facing your enemy head-on is the honorable move even if you lose the island and its people are slaughtered. Jin discovers he is willing to make compromises if it means saving lives, sacrificing his good name by stabbing enemies in the back or poisoning their armies if need be. But it's not just Jin's story that's gripping. We have a number of lengthy side quests that are fascinating, mostly based around Jin and his allies. The most harrowing I saw, mild spoilers, is a warrior monk who begins his journey saying he never wants to swing his weapon in hate. And by the time his story ends, he's burning Mongols alive, and we are left to wonder what our murderous influence has done to the man. Even the minor stories are memorable. I found one side mission where a group of townsfolk were acting very weird and said they didn't want my protection. I eventually discovered they had traded all their women away to the Mongols in exchange for the safety of the cowering men. I rescued the women, who decided to leave the village and live on their own, and executed the town leader as an example to the others. The entire mission was me probably only killing like 8 bad guys, and yet it hit me hard. There are at least a dozen other missions I could say produced similar reactions, including many that nearly moved me to tears that I won't get into, lest you not be able to experience them fresh for yourself. As I said earlier, I do think Ghost of Tsushima goes on a bit too long. The third section of the map especially feels like overkill, and it's so barren you do have to wonder if it was sort of an afterthought, and I'm not sure it needed to exist at all, as it makes the game kind of feel like it runs out of steam by the end, though the conclusions of various storylines that occur there are all good. I just would have shaved a little bit off the top of this game, similar to what I said about The Last of Us. I really just think many 30-hour games need to be more like 20 to 25, as it's like watching a TV show you love, yet you get exhausted by it when you realize it has, say, a 35-episode season. That said, I'll be damned if I don't want to return to that world down the road, perhaps in DLC, a bit unlikely in this era, or almost certainly in a sequel, given the success of the game. From the trailers, we always knew Ghost of Tsushima would be pretty. But I was not expecting a combat system this engaging and fun, or a story this gripping and emotional. It is easily one of the best games of the entire PS4 generation, and given its competition, that's saying something. Ghost of Tsushima Review PS4, the surprise of the generation. We are only a few months away from the launch of the PlayStation 5, and yet here we are, with Sony releasing all-time great exclusives in the final months of the PS4's life cycle. The last, albeit no